If we did not have proper medicine or doctors, how did we have people living between 800 and 1,000 years in antiquity?
Thanks a lot, Dave. Another great question in the Ask the Rabbi series. Once again, the email address, asktheRabbi@torchweb.org. So your question, how is it possible that people in the Bible live for so long? Adam lived to 930, and even Jacob lived to 147, Sarah lived to 127, Isaac lived to 180. What is the deal with this? Moses lived to 120. That's a great question. So I think we have to break it down to two separate questions. If you look in Genesis, it seems, well, it's not seems, it's evident that God made a shift in the lifespan of humans, wherein God tells us that no longer can they just live, for hundreds and hundreds of years. Rather, they're limited to 120 years. That's the average lifespan. So, as to the question of Noah and Mesushelach and Chanoch and all those people in the beginning of Genesis that lived hundreds and hundreds of years, that's one question, because and I'm saying that's one problem that's easily solved by realizing that they were living under different conditions. God made a conscious change in the expected the life expectancy of humans. But your question is really a good question, because if you look at like the forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, they lived to 180, 175, 147, 127, a long time. Moses lived to $120. Aaron lived to $120. What's the deal with the people living so long, especially, like you referenced, that didn't have such good medicine? So there's a few elements that really contribute to the answer. Number one, let's start with a statistic. In the year 1963, that's a mere 52 years ago, the global life expectancy was, surprisingly, drum roll please, 60 years. So if you count all the people in the world, all the 5 billion people that lived at that time, they had a life expectancy of 60. In the year 2013, a mere 50 years later, a speck in history, we have the life expectancy being raised to 70 years. Thus, in a mere 50 years, the average life expectancy globally increased by 10 years, or 16%. If you just want to just take this reality, this statistic, and just spread it out a little bit, what you find that we have, if you have 8 billion people in the world, the mere increase in life expectancy is an increase of 80 billion human years. From the 10 years that we have grown since 1963 in life expectancy, over all 8 billion of us contributes to 80 billion years of life, of human experience. And that is an enormous amount of people, enormous amount of years. So the idea being where we have our kind of perspective on how long humans live, that could change very rapidly, very radically. So who knows what the story was, 3,800 years ago. Perhaps it was quite common for people to live to 110, 120, 150. Who knows? And maybe we'll be there. Google's working on all these efforts, life extension efforts, where this, cancer was only isolated in 1756. If there's no cancer, people have healthier hearts, they're more in tune to their environment, they eat healthier, they don't eat as much junk as we do. Perhaps it was quite normal for people to live very, very long. That's element number one to the answer. Element number two is the spiritual element, and that is, the Talmud tells us that our life expectancy can be cut short by our sins. Many verses reference the fact that the forefathers maximized their years. Isaac was granted 180 years, and he lived a full 180. He didn't lose a single day due to sin. Perhaps all of us could really live to 110, 120, 150 quite easily without any problem. It's just that we have multitudes of sin that constantly chip away at the life expectancy. And that's why, we're 70, 80, 85, we're kind of getting old, and we die. And that's old for us, but in reality, we're dying very, very, very young. And in fact, what I find remarkable is that if you look in Israel, where we have the great Torah scholars that are leaders of our generation, and you look at the life expectancy, or just how long, at what age are these great people all dying? You find that no one dies before they're 102. I remember reading the great article when Rabbi Yaakov Zatzal died a couple of years ago, 2012. He died at the age of 102. And he was, to his last day, he was adjudicating the most complex halakhic shilos to Jews across the world. In an instant, he would be able to answer the most complex question that would take the average rabbi, perhaps 2 years to articulate even. And he was vibrant to the last day, 102. And I read the article that says that the mantle of leadership is passed on to the next generation, to the great Rabbi Leib Steinman. He shall live and be well. And then I had a comma, 99, comma. That was his age. That's the next generation when it comes to Israeli Torah giants. And 99 years old, can you imagine someone in contemporary American life being a big factor, a big leader, influential, vibrant, teaching, all the critical questions coming to their doorstep at the age of 99, now he's already 102? Could you imagine that? Of course not. Why? Because they're all dead by that time. They're 80 or 85 or 90. No one survives that long. So we see, and it's not only those two. Rav Shach, the great Rav Shach, who passed away in 2002. So there's a dispute as to when he was born. Was he born in 1895 or 1898? Thus, when he died, he was either almost 104 or almost 107. It's a whole debate how old he was. Think about that, almost 107. Rav Scheinberg, he passed away at 103. This is common that the great Torah leaders in Israel, they all lived to 105, no problem. Rav Kaduri, another great example. He had 2 million people by his funeral. Google, Rav Kaduri, Yitzchak Kaduri. He smoked 3 packs of unfiltered cigarettes every day. You can see his mustache was all yellow from all the cigarettes that he had. And he died at 107. This is a real thing. Our years are cut short due to sin. The great forefathers, they lived that long, not because necessarily their bodies were made different, or they were so super healthy, or they had some sort of paleo diet that we just haven't wrapped our heads around. I would argue that they probably were healthier. Remember, these are people that have conquered their character to such a degree that they weren't fressing or overeating or doing things to themselves that were deleterious to their health. I'm sure they were healthy, but much more than that, spiritually, they did nothing to contribute to the early demise. Thus, they maximized their years, and their years were 147, 175, no problem. And this is an idea which is already in Jewish literature for thousands of years, and that is that our sins, unfortunately, are going to contribute to the shortening of our lives. And we think about this. What do people want more than anything else? Perhaps good health. People want to be healthy, vibrant, alive, aware for years to see their kids and grandkids and great-grandkids, etc. Perhaps what we could do is make some sort of dedication, some sort of commitment to not cut our years short via sin and thus lengthen our lives, That's what the Talmud says. That's the secret to long life. Kihim chayenu. And maybe it's very literally. It's our lives. That's what it grants us long, fruitful years. Either way, those are the components to the answer. On one hand, you have the question of Noah and Adam. That's one question. But post factum, once God reduced the amount of years, then only the people that maximized their life and the life opportunities, like the great forefathers and patriarchs, only they actually lived out the years allotted to them. Unfortunately, us today are most likely cutting our own years and own opportunities short via our misdeeds. Thank you for all the questions. Once again, I reiterate, please send me an email with your question. I will address you by name. Your question will be broadcast on the interwebs to millions of people. Get your questions answered. Ask the rabbi at torchrub.org. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.